Hello everyone, today I'll be reading chapter 4 of the 12 Rules for Life. As you can see, I had to switch to PDF version of the book because Amazon wouldn't let me read it all for you with the screen share feature. So I have to, find a PDF version of it. I paid for that book and they wouldn't let me share it with all of you. So yeah, my recommendation for all of you, don't use Amazon. They're not even letting you buy the book, they're letting you rent it. And they won't even let you read just because you share it with the wall. Stupid. Either way, let's have a look. Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Internal critic. It was easier for people to be good at something when more of us live in small rural communities. Someone could be homecoming queen. Someone else could be spelling bee champ, math whiz, or basketball star. There were only 1 or 2 mechanics and a couple of teachers in each of their domains. These local heroes had the opportunity to enjoy the serotonin-fueled confidence of the victor. It may be for that reason that people who were born in small towns are statistically overrepresented among the eminent. If you are 1 in a million now, but originated in modern New York, there's 20 of you, and most of us now live in cities. What's more, we have become digitally connected to the entire 7 billion. Our hierarchies of accomplishment are now dizzyingly vertical. No matter how good you are at something or how you rank your accomplishments, there is someone out there who makes you look incompetent. You are a decent guitar player, but you're not Jimmy Page or Jack White. You are almost certainly not even going to rock your local pub. You are a good cook, but there are many great chefs. Your mother's recipe for fish heads and rice, no matter how celebrated in their village of origin, doesn't cut it in these days of grapefruit foam and Scotch tobacco ice cream. Some mafia don has a thicker yacht. Some obsessive CEO has a more complicated self-winding watch, kept in his more valuable mechanical hardwood and steel automatic self-winding watch case. Even the most stunning Hollywood actress eventually transforms into the evil queen. No eternal paranoid watch for the Snow White. And your career is boring and pointless. Your housekeeping skills are second-rate. Your taste is appalling. You're fatter than your friends, and everyone dreads your parties. Who cares if you are Prime Minister of Canada when someone else is the President of the United States? Inside of us dwells a critical internal voice and spirit that knows all this. It's predisposed to make its noisy case. It condemns our mediocre efforts. It can be very difficult to quell. Critics of this sort are necessary. There is no shortage of tasteless artists, tuneless musicians, poisonous cooks, bureaucratically personality disordered middle managers, hack novelists and tedious, ideology-ridden professors. Things and people differ importantly in their qualities. Awful music torments listeners everywhere. Poorly designed buildings crumble in earthquakes. Substandard automobiles kill their driver when they crash. Failure is the price we pay for standards, and because mediocrity has consequences, both real and harsh. Standards are necessary. We are not equal in ability or outcome, and will never be. A very small number of people produce very much of everything. The winners don't take all, but they take most. And the bottom is not a good place to be. People are unhappy at the bottom. They get sick there and remain unknown and unloved. They waste their lives there. They die there. In consequence, the self-denigrating voice in the minds of people weaves a devastating tale. Life is a zero-sum game. Wordlessness is the default condition. What but willful blindness could possibly shelter people from such withering criticism? It is for such reasons that a whole generation of social psychologists recommend positive illusions as the only reliable route to mental health. Their credo: let a lie be your umbrella. A more dismal, wretched, pessimistic philosophy can hardly be imagined. Things are so terrible that only delusion can save you. Here is an alternative approach, and one that requires no illusions. If the cards are always stacked against you, perhaps the game you're playing is somehow rigged, perhaps by you, unbeknownst to yourself. If the internal voice makes you doubt the value of your endeavors or your life or life itself, perhaps you should stop listening. If the critical voice within says the same denigrating things about everyone, no matter how successful, how reliable can it be? Maybe it's the comments are chatter, not wisdom. There will always be people better than you. That's a cliche of nihilism. Like the phrase, in a million years, who's going to know the difference? The proper response to that statement is not. Well, then everything is meaningless. Any idiot can choose a frame of time within which nothing matters. Talking yourself into irrelevance is not a profound critique of being. It's a cheap trick of the rational mind. Many good games. Standards of better or worse are not illusory or necessary. If you hadn't decided that what you are doing right now was better than the alternatives, you wouldn't be doing it. The idea of a value-free choice is a contradiction in terms. Value judgments are a precondition for action. Furthermore, every activity, once chosen, comes with its own internal standards of accomplishment. If something can be done at all, it can be done better or worse. To do anything at all is therefore to play a game with a defined and value end, which can always be reached more or less efficiently and elegantly. Every game comes with its chance of success or failure. Differential inequality are omnipresent. Furthermore, if there are no better or worse, nothing would be worth doing. There would be no value and therefore no meaning. Why make an effort if it doesn't improve anything? Meaning itself requires a difference between better and worse. How then can the voice of critical self-consciousness be stilled? Where are the flaws in the apparently impeccable logic of its message? We might start by considering the all too black and white words themselves, success or failure. You're either a success or a comprehensive, singular, overall good thing, or its opposite, a failure, a comprehensive, singular, irredeemably bad thing. The words imply no alternative and no middle ground. However, in a world as complex as ours, such generalizations, really such failure to differentiate, are a sign of naive and sophisticated or even malevolent analysis. There are vital degrees and gradations of value obliterated by this binary system, and the consequences are not good. To begin with, there is not just one game at which to succeed or fail. There are many games, and more specifically, many good games. Games that match your talents, involve you productively with other people, and sustain and even improve themselves across time. Lawyer is a good game. So is plumber, physician, carpenter, or school teacher. The world allows for many ways of being. If you don't succeed at one, you can try another. You can pick something better matched to your unique mix of strengths, weaknesses, and situation. Furthermore, if changing games does not work, you can invent a new one. I recently watched a talent show featuring a mime who taped his mouth shut and did something ridiculous with oven mitts. That was unexpected, that was original. It seemed to be working for him. It's also unlikely that you are playing only one game. You have a career and friends and family members and personal projects and artistic endeavors and athletic pursuits. You might consider judging your success across all the games you play. Imagine that you're very good at some, middling at others, and terrible at the remainder. Perhaps that's how it should be. You might object, I should be winning at everything. But winning at everything might only mean that you are not doing anything new or difficult. You might be winning, but you are not growing. And growing might be the most important form of winning. Should victory in the present always take precedence over trajectory across time? Finally, you might come to realize that the specifics of the many games you're playing are so unique to you, so individual, that comparison to others is simply inappropriate. Perhaps you are overvaluing what you don't have and undervaluing what you do. There's some real utility in gratitude. It's also good protection against the dangers of victimhood and resentment. Your colleagues outperforms you at work. His wife, however, is having an affair, while your marriage is stable and happy. Who has it better? The celebrity you admire is a chronic drunk driver and bigot. Is his life truly preferable to yours? One of the internal critics puts you down using such comparison. Here's how it operates. First, it selects a single arbitrary domain of comparison, fame, maybe, or power. Then it acts as if that domain is the only one that is relevant. Then it contrasts you, and favorably, with some truly stellar within that domain. It can be that final step even further, using the unbridgeable gap between you and its target of comparison as the evidence for the fundamental injustice of life. That way, your motivation to do anything at all can be most effectively undermined. Those who accept such approach to life evaluation suddenly can be accused of making things too easy for themselves, but it's just as big a problem to make things too difficult. When we are very young, we are neither individual nor informed. We have not had the time nor gained the wisdom to develop our own standards. In consequence, we must compare ourselves to others because standards are necessary. Without them, there is no place to go and nothing to do. As we mature, we become, by contrast, increasingly individual and unique. The conditions of our lives become more and more personal and less comparable with those of others. Symbolically speaking, this means we must leave the house ruled by our father and confront the chaos of our individual being. We must take note of our disarray without completely abandoning that father in the process. We must then rediscover the values of our culture, veiled from us by ignorance, hidden in the industry treasure trove of the past, rescue them and integrate them into our own lives. This is what gives existence its full and necessary meaning. Who are you? You think you know, but maybe you don't. You are, for example, neither your own master nor your own slave. You cannot easily tell yourself what to do and compel your own obedience, any more than you can easily tell your husband, wife, son, or daughter what to do and compel theirs. You are interested in some things and not in others. You can shape that interest, but there are limits. Some activities will always engage you and others will simply not. You have a nature. You can play the tyrant to it, but you will suddenly rebel. How hard can you force yourself to walk and sustain your desire to walk? How much can you sacrifice to your partner before generosity tends to resentment? What is it that you actually love? What is that you generally want? Before you can articulate your own standard and value, standards of value, you must see yourself as a stranger, and then you must get to know yourself. What do you find valuable or pleasurable? How much leisure, enjoyment, and reward do you not require, so that you feel like more than a beast of burden? How must you treat yourself so you won't kick over the traces and smash up your coral? How you could force yourself through your daily grind and kick your dog in frustration when you come home. You could watch the previous days tick by, or you could learn how to entice yourself into sustainable, productive activity. Do you ask yourself what you want? Do you negotiate fairly with yourself, or are you a tyrant with yourself a slave? When do you dislike your parents, your spouse, or your children, and why? What might be done about that? What do you need and want from your friends and your business partners? This is not a mere matter of what you should want. I'm not talking about what other people require from you or your duties to them. I'm talking about determining the nature of your moral obligation to yourself. Should might enter into it because you are nested within a network of social obligations. Should is your responsibility and you should live up to it. But this does not mean you must take the role of lapdog, obedient and harmless. That's how a dictator wants his slaves. Dare instead to be dangerous. Dare to be truthful. Dare to articulate yourself and express, or at least become aware of, what would really justify your life. If you allow your dark and unspoken desires for your partner, for example, to manifest themselves, if you were even willing to consider them, you might discover that they were not so dark given the light of day. You might discover instead that you were just afraid and so pretending to be moral. You might find that getting what you actually desire will stop you from being tempted and straying. Are you so sure that your partner would be unhappy if more of you rose to the surface? The femme fatale and the anti-hero are sexually attractive for a reason. How do you need to be spoken to? What do you need to take from people? What are you putting up with or pretending to like, from duty or obligation? Consult your resentment. It's a revelatory emotion for all its pathology. It's part of an evil triad: arrogance, deceit, and resentment. Nothing causes more harm than this underworld trinity. But resentment always means one of two things. Either the resentful person is immature, in which case he or she should shut up, quit whining, and get on with it. Or there is a tyranny afoot, in which case the person subjugated has a moral obligation to speak up. Why? Because the consequence of remaining silent is worse. Of course, it's easier in the moment to stay silent and avoid conflict, but in the long term, that's deadly. When you have something to say, silence is a lie, and tyranny feeds on lies. When should you push back against oppression, despite the danger? When you start nursing secret fantasy of revenge, when your life is being poisoned and your imagination fills with the wish to devour and destroy. I had a client decades ago who suffered from severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. He had to line up his pajamas just right before he could go to sleep at night. Then he had to fluff his pillow. Then he had to adjust the bed sheets over and over and over. I said, maybe that part of you, that insanely persistent part, wants something, inarticulate though it may be. Let it have its say. What could it be? He said, control. I said, close your eyes and let it tell you what it wants. Don't let fear stop you. You don't have to act it out just because you're thinking it. It said, it wants me to take my stepfather by the collar, put him up against the door, and shake him like a rat. Maybe it was time to shake someone like a rat, although I suggested something a bit less primal, but God only knows what battles must be fought forthrightly, voluntarily, on the road to peace. What do you do to avoid conflict, necessary though it may be? What are you inclined to lie about, assuming that the truth might be intolerable? What do you fake? The infant is dependent on his parents for almost everything he needs. The child, the successful child, can leave his parents, at least temporarily, and make friends. He gives up a little of himself to do that, but gains much in return. The successful adolescent must take that process to its logical conclusion. He has to leave his parents and become like everyone else. He has to integrate with the group so he can transcend his childhood dependency. Once integrated, the successful adult then must learn how to be just the right amount different from everyone else. Be cautious when you are comparing yourself to others. You are a singular being. Once you are an adult, you have your own particular specific problems, financial, intimate, psychological, and otherwise. Those are embedded in the unique border context of your existence. Your career or job works for you in a personal matter, or it does not. And it does so in a unique interplay with the other specifics of your life. You must decide how much of your time to spend on this and how much on that. You must decide what to let go and what to pursue. The point of our eyes, or take stock. Our eyes are always pointing at things we are interested in approaching, or investigating, or looking for, or having. We must see, but to see we must aim. So we are always aiming. Our minds are built on the hunting and gathering platforms of our bodies. To hunt is to specify our target, track it, and throw at it. To gather is to specify and to grasp. We fling stones and spears and boomerangs. We toss balls through hoops and hit pucks into nets and curl carved granite rocks down the ice onto horizontal bullseyes. We launch projectiles at targets with bows, guns, rifles, and rockets. We hurl insults, launch plans, and pitch ideas. We succeed when we score a goal or hit a target. We fail or sin when we do not. As the word sin means to miss the mark. We cannot navigate without something to aim at, and while we are in this war, we must always navigate. We are always and simultaneously at point A, which is less desirable than it could be, moving toward point B, which we deem better in accordance with our explicit and implicit values. We always encounter the wall in a state of insufficiency and seek its correction. We can imagine new ways that things could be set right and improved, even if we have everything we thought we needed. Even once satisfied, temporarily we remain curious. We live within a framework that defines the present as eternally lacking or the future as eternally better. If we did not see things this way, we would not act at all. We wouldn't even be able to see, because to see we must focus, and to focus we must pick one thing above all as on which to focus. But we can see. We can even see things that aren't there. We can envision new ways that things could do better. We can construct new hypothetical worlds where problems we weren't even aware of can now show themselves and be addressed. The advantages of this are obvious. We can change the world so that the intolerable state of the present can be rectified in the future. This disadvantage to all this foresight and creativity is chronic unease and discomfort, because we always contrast what is with what could be. We have to aim at what could be, but we can aim too high or too low or too chaotically, so we fail and live in disappointment, even when we appear to others to be living well. How can we benefit from our imaginatives, our ability to improve the future, without continually denigrating our current insufficiently successful and worthless lives? The first step, perhaps, is to take stock. Who are you? When you buy a house and prepare to live in it, you hire an inspector to list all its faults, as it is in reality, now not as you wish it could be. You will even pay him for the bad news. You need to know. You need to discover the home's hidden flaws. You need to know whether they are cosmetic imperfections or structural inadequacies. You need to know because you can't fix something if you don't know if it's broken. And you're broken. You need an inspector. The internal critic, it could play that role. If you could get it on track, if you and it could cooperate, it could help you take stock. But you must walk through your psychological house with it and listen judiciously to what it says. Maybe you are a handyman's dream, a real fixer-upper. How can you start your renovations without being demoralized, even crushed, by your internal critic's lengthy and painful report of your inadequacies? Here's a hint. The future is like past, but there's a crucial difference. The past is fixed, but the future, it could be better. It could be better, some precise amount. The amount that can be achieved perhaps in a day with some minimal engagement. The present is eternally flawed, but where you start might not be as important as the direction you are heading. Perhaps happiness is always to be found in the journey uphill, and not in the fleeting sense of satisfaction awaiting at the next peak. Much of happiness is hope, no matter how deep the ender wall in which that hope was conceived. Called upon properly, the internal critic will suggest something to set in order, which you could set in order voluntarily, without resentment, even with pleasure. Ask yourself, is there one thing that exists in the disarray in your life or your situation that you could and would set straight? Could you and would you fix the one thing that announces itself humbly in need of repair? Could you do it now? Imagine that you are someone with whom you must negotiate. Imagine, Father, that you are lazy, touchy, resentful, and hard to get along with. With that attitude, it's not going to be easy to get you moving. You might have to use a little charm and playfulness. Excuse me, you might say to yourself, without irony or sarcasm. I'm trying to reduce some of the unnecessary suffering around here. I could use some help. Keep the derision at bay. I'm wondering if there is anything that you could be willing to do. I'll be very grateful for your service, as honestly and with humility. There's no simple matter. You might have to negotiate further, depending on your state of mind. Maybe you don't trust yourself. You think that you will ask yourself for one thing and, having delivered, immediately demand more. And you will be punitive and hurtful about it. And you will denigrate what was already offered. Who wants to walk for a tyrant like that? Not you. That's why you don't do what you want yourself to do. You are a bad employee, but a worse boss. Maybe you need to say to yourself, okay, I know we haven't gotten along very well in the past. I'm so sorry about that. I'm trying to improve. I'll probably make some more mistakes along the way, but I will try to listen if you object. I will try to learn. I noticed just now, today, that you weren't really jumping at the opportunity to help when I asked. Is there something I could offer in return for your cooperation? Maybe if you did the dishes, we could go for coffee. You like espresso? How about an espresso? Maybe a double shot? Or is there something else you want? Then you could listen. Maybe you will hear a voice inside. Maybe it's even the voice of a long-lost child. Maybe it will reply, really? You really want to do something nice for me? You really do it? It's not a trick? And this is where you must be careful. That little voice, that's the voice of someone once born and twice shy. So you could say very carefully, really, I might not do it very well, but I might not be great company, but I will do something nice for you, I promise. A little careful kindness goes a long way. Just judicial rewards is powerful motivator. Then you could take that small bit of yourself by the hand and do the damn dishes. And you get better. And you better not go clean the bathroom and forget about the coffee or the movie or the beer, or it will be even harder to call those forgotten parts of yourself forth from the nooks and crannies of the underworld. You might ask yourself, what could I say to someone else, my friend, my brother, my boss, and my assistant, that will set things a bit more right between us tomorrow? What bit of chaos might I eradicate at home, on my desk, in my kitchen, tonight, so that the stage could be set for a better play? What snakes might I banish from my closet and my mind? 500 small decisions, 500 tiny actions compose your day, today and every day. Could you aim one or two of these at a better result? Better in your own private opinion, by your own individual standards? Could you compare your specific personal tomorrow with your specific personal yesterday? Could you use your own judgment and ask yourself what that better tomorrow might be? Aim small. You don't want to shoulder too much to begin with. Given your limited talents, tendency to deceive, burden of resentment, and ability to shirk responsibility, thus you set the following goal. Ask yourself, what could I do that I would do that would accomplish that? And that small thing would I like as a reward? Then you do what you have decided to do, even if you do it badly. Then you give yourself that damn coffee in triumph. Maybe you feel a bit stupid about it, but you do it anyway. And you do the same thing tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. And with each day, your baseline of comparison gets a little higher. And that's magic. That's compound interest. Do that for 3 years and your life will be entirely different. Now you're aiming for something higher. Now you're wishing on a star. Now the beam is disappearing from your eye. And you are learning to see, and what you aim at determines what you see. That's what repeating. What you aim at determines what you see. Again, what you aimed at determines what you see. Please allow me to take a picture of this one. You might be saying, you own this book, why are you taking pictures? Well, I just want to remember that specifically. What do you want and what you see? What you want and what you see. The dependency of sight on aim, and therefore on value, because you aim at what you value, was demonstrated unforgettably by the cognitive psychologist Daniel Simons. Shout out to the Daniels out there. More than 15 years ago, Simons was investigating something called sustained inattentional blindness. He would sit his research subjects in front of a video monitor and show them, for example, a field of wheat. Then he would transform the photo slowly, secretly, while they watched. He would slowly fade in the road, cutting through the wheat. He didn't insert some little easy-to-miss footpath either. It was a major trail occupying a good third of the image. Remarkably, the observers would frequently fail to take notice. The demonstration that made Dr. Simons famous was of the same kind, but more dramatic, even, and believable. First, he produced a video of 2 teams of 3 people. One team was wearing white shirts, the other black. 2 teams were not off in the distance either, or in any way difficult to see. The 6 of them filled much of the video screen, and their facial features were close enough to see clearly. Each team had its own ball, which they bounced or threw to their other team members, or they moved and fainted in the small space in front of the elevators where the game was filmed. Once Dan had his video, he showed it to his steady participants. He asked each of them to count the number of times the white shirts threw the ball back and forth to another. After a few minutes, his subjects were asked to report the number of passes. Most answered 15. That was the correct answer. Most felt pretty good about that. Ha! They passed the test. But then Dr. Simon asked, did you see the gorilla? Was this a joke? What gorilla? So he said, watch the video again, but this time don't count. Sure enough, a minute or so in, a man dressed in a gorilla suit waltzes right into the middle of the game for a few long seconds, stops, and then beats his chest in the manner of stereotyped gorilla everywhere. Right in the middle of the screen. Large as life. The painfully and irrefutably evident. But 1 out of every 2 of his research subjects missed it. The first time they saw the video, it gets worse. Titled Simons did another study. This time, he showed his subject a video of someone being served at a counter. The server dips behind the counter to retrieve something and pops back up. So what? Most of his clients didn't detect anything amiss, but it was a different person who stood up in the original server's place. No way! You think I'd notice? But it's yes way. There's a high probability you wouldn't detect the change, even if the gender or race of the person is switched at the same time. You're blind too. This is partly because vision is expensive, psychophysiologically expensive, neurologically expensive. Very little of our retina is high resolution fovea. The very central, High resolution part of the eye used to do such thing as identifying faces. Each of the scarce foveal cells need 10,000 cells in the visual cortex merely to manage the first part of the multi-stage processing of seeing. Then each of those 10,000 requires 10,000 more to get to stage 2. If all your retina was fovea, you would require the skull of a B-movie alien to house your brain. In consequence, we triage, and when we see. Most of our vision is peripheral and low resolution. We save the fovea for things of importance. We point our high resolution capacities at the very few specific things we are aiming at, and we let everything else, which is almost everything, fade unnoticed into the background. If something you're not attending to pops its ugly head up in a manner that directly interferes with your narrowly focused current activity, you will see it. Otherwise, it's not just there. The ball on which Simon's research subjects were focused was never obscured by the gorilla or by any of the 6 players. Because the gorilla didn't interfere with the ongoing, narrowly defined task, it was indistinguishable from everything else the participants didn't see. When they were looking at the ball, the big ape could be safely ignored. That's how you deal with the overwhelming complexity of the wall. You ignore it. While you concentrate minutely on your private concerns, you see things that facilitate your movement forward toward your desired goals. You detect obstacles. When they pop up in your path, you're blind to everything else, and there's a lot of everything else, so you are very blind. And it has to be that way, because there is much more of the wall than there is of you. You must shepherd your limited resources carefully. Seeing is very difficult, so you must choose what to see and let the rest go. That's a profound idea in the ancient Vedic texts, the oldest scriptures of Hinduism and part of the bedrock of Indian culture. The world, as perceived, is Maya, appearance or delusion. This means in part that people are blinded by their desires as well as merely incapable of seeing things as they truly are. This is true. In a sense that transcends the metaphorical. Your eyes are tools. They are there to help you get what you want. The price you pay for the utility, that specific focused direction, is blindness to everything else. This doesn't matter so much when things are going well and we're getting what we want, although it can be a problem even then, because getting what we currently want can make blind us to higher callings. But all that ignored world presents a truly terrible problem when we are in crisis and nothing whatsoever is turning out the way we want it to. Then there can be far too much to deal with. Happily, however, that problem contains within it the seeds of its own solution. Since you've ignored so much, there is plenty of possibility left where you have not yet looked. Imagine that you're unhappy. You're not getting what you need. Perversely, this may be because of what you want. You are blind because of what you desire. Perhaps what you really need is right in front of your eyes, but you cannot see it because of what you are currently aiming for. And that brings us to something else, the price that must be paid before you. Or anything can get what they want, or better yet, what they need. Think about it this way. You look at the wall in your particular idiosyncratic manner. You use a set of tools to screen most things out and let some things in. You have a lot of time building those tools. They've become habitual. They are not mere abstract thoughts. They are built right into you. They orient you in the wall. They are your deepest and often implicit and unconscious values. They've become part of your biological structure. They are alive and they don't want to disappear, transform, or die. But sometimes their time has come and new things need to be born. For this reason, although not only for this reason, it is necessary to let things go during the journey uphill. If things are not going well for you, well, that might be because, as the most cynical of aphorisms has it, life sucks, and then you die. before your crisis impels you to that hideous conclusion. However, you might consider the following: life doesn't have the problem, you do. At least that realization leaves you with some options. If your life is not going well, perhaps it is your current knowledge that is insufficient, not life itself. Perhaps your value structure needs some serious retooling. Perhaps what you want is blinding you to what else could be. Perhaps you are holding on to your desires in the present so tightly that you cannot see anything else, even what you truly need. Imagine that you are thinking enviously, I should have my boss's job. If your boss sticks to his post stubbornly and competently, though thoughts like that will lead you into a state of irritation, unhappiness, and disgust. You might realize this. You think, I'm unhappy. However, I could be cured of this happiness if I could just fulfill my ambition. But then you might think further. Wait, you think, maybe I'm not unhappy because I don't have my boss's job. Maybe I'm unhappy because I can't stop wanting that job. That doesn't mean you can just simply and magically tell yourself to stop wanting that job and then listen and transform. You can't, in fact, just change yourself that easily. You have to dig deeper. You must change what you're after more profoundly. So you might think, I don't know what to do about this stupid suffering. I can't just abandon my ambitions. That would leave me nowhere to go. But my longing for a job that I can have isn't working. You might decide to take a different tack. You might ask, instead, for the revelation of a different plan, one that would fulfill your desires and gratify your ambitions in a real sense, but that would remove your life from the bitterness and resentment with which you are currently affected. You might think, I will make a different plan. I will try to want whatever it is that would make my life better. Whatever that might be, I will start working on it now. If that turns out to mean something other than chasing my boss's job, I will accept that and I will move forward. Now you are on a whole different kind of trajectory. Before, what was right, desirable, and worthy of pursuit was something narrow and concrete. But you became stuck there, tightly jammed and unhappy. So you let go. You make the necessary sacrifice and allow a whole new world of possibility, hidden from you because of your previous ambition, to reveal itself. And there's a lot there. What would your life look like if it were better? What would life itself look like? What does better even mean? You don't know, and it doesn't matter that you don't know exactly right away, because you will start to slowly see what is better. Once you have truly decided to want it, you will start to perceive what remained hidden from you by your presuppositions and preconceptions, by the previous mechanism of your vision. You will begin to learn. This will only work, however, if you genuinely want your life to improve. You can fool your implicit and perpetual perceptual structures. Not even a bit. They aimed where you point them. To retool, to take stock, to aim somewhere better, you have to think it through. Bottom to top, you have to score your psyche. You have to clean the damn thing up, and you must be cautious, because making your life better means adopting a lot of responsibility, and that takes more effort and care than living stupidly in pain and remaining arrogant, deceitful, and resentful. What if it was the case that the world revealed whatever goodness it contains in precise proportion to your desire for the best? What if the more your conception of the best has been elevated, expanded, and rendered sophisticated, the more possibility and benefit you could perceive? This doesn't mean that you can have what you want merely by wishing it, or that everything is interpretation, or that there is no reality. The wall is still there, with its structure and limits. As you move along with it, it will lead if you have enough skills and enough grace. This is not theology. It's not mysticism. It's empirical knowledge. There is nothing magical here, or nothing more than the already present magic of consciousness. We only see what we aim at. The rest of the wall, and that's most of it, is hidden. If we start aiming at something different, something like I want my life to be better, our minds will start presenting us with new information derived from the previous hidden world to aid us in that pursuit. Then we can put that information to use and move and act and observe and improve. And after doing so, after improving, we might pursue something different or higher, something like I want whatever might be better than just my life being better. And then we enter a more elevated and more complete reality. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this part right here because it's already 45 minutes. And as you know, TikTok won't let me post videos more than 60 minutes. So I think it's fair game to stop it right here and read again for the part 2. So make sure to like, subscribe and follow. I will be posting another part of this chapter. Sorry I was late for today because I had my own problems and my jobs to take care of. Therefore, that's all for today. My bad. That's all for this video. I will be posting a new one soon. So make sure you like, subscribe and follow. This is Daniel. See you in the next video.